The Falling Walls Science Breakthrough of the Year 2022 in Future Learning. Breaking the wall to integration. How a language services platform is giving refugees access to digital livelihoods. Aline Sara, NaTakallam.
On November 9th, 1989, I was 5 years old. My parents told me the story later, recounting the incredible images of people standing on the wall, hugging each other between East and West.
My parents married amidst bombings. In the early 80s, Lebanon was torn apart by sectarian violence. But they were among the lucky. Newly married, they managed to leave and went to the US. They were welcome, and they raised me and my brothers safe and away from the violence. But things have changed, haven't they? What if my family was from Afghanistan, Syria, Venezuela in today's world? Well, I'd like to introduce you to Raif, a young Syrian computer scientist in today's world. In 2011, a popular uprising took over the country, demanding basic human rights, but it evolved into a horrendous civil conflict involving many international, foreign-sponsored militias and weapons. And so while Raif was doing his compulsory military service in IT, he was sent from behind his computer screen to the battleground, untrained, where he endured besiegement, starvation, near death, and spent months in the hospital. But when he came out, he was ordered to return and to fight, a fight that made absolutely no sense to him. And so, like many of his compatriots, he fled to a neighboring country, Lebanon. When he arrived to Lebanon, he was arrested by the Lebanese authorities, spent a week in prison, and they told him, go home or get out of this country. Going home, well, that meant prison, torture, death for most army deserters in Syria. And getting out, well, that meant finding thousands of dollars to cross the Mediterranean migration route, a also deadly journey in hopes of making it to Europe and to seek asylum. My name is Aline, and I am the co-founder of NaTakallam, which means we speak in Arabic, and is the first social enterprise to leverage the freelance digital economy and refugees' native tongue to hire them as online tutors, teachers, and translators, regardless of their location and status. And so in 2015, Raif, who was living undocumented, was referred to us. And so we decided to hire him, and throughout that year, he connected with over 100 students from the US to Japan, teaching them his language, sharing his story, and also changing the narrative around refugees. Then, one day, I received a message from him on WhatsApp. Aline, he said, please tell my students I am so sorry, and I thank them. Raif was hiding on top of a rooftop. Lebanese authorities were conducting raids on Syrians due to mounting tension between refugees and the local community. I asked him what I could do. He said, nothing. All you can do is try and get me out of here. It is worth noting that for Syrians and other refugees in the situation that Raif is in, there is less than 1% chance that they will actually get formally resettled to a country that will actually accept them, give them a right to stay, and fully restart their lives. I was devastated. I thought I'd never see him or hear from him again. Well, I am happy to share that Raif is fine. Raif was not imprisoned. In fact, this is Raif with Susan Sarandon at an event on migration at the Vatican. It turns out that that day he was not arrested, and he continued to give sessions to his students, and one of them in particular introduced him to a small church-run program in Italy that resettles refugees. And so he applied, and he was resettled. Today, he is on his way to get Italian citizenship. He's learned Italian, redone a degree in international affairs, and is a full-time journalist. And he attributes that outcome to NaTakallam. Effectively, NaTakallam is breaking the wall to integration to millions of refugees, hopefully in the future. And how we do that is relatively simple. By hiring them as online tutors and translators, we give them access to a livelihood rather than them being passive recipients to aid. This work also engenders dignity, restores purpose, rekindles a social network and capital that refugees lose due to war. And finally, at the macro level, this creates bridges between refugees, individuals, companies that hire them, and builds bridges and also changes that narrative that we constantly hear in the media and political spheres. Today, over 100 million people are forcibly displaced, mostly due to conflict. And believe it or not, in 2022, despite the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, more people have been displaced by climate than by conflict. But our leaders, they don't really have a plan. They turn to soldiers, walls, checkpoints to contain the situation rather than address it. But what we need is urgent, sustainable solutions that welcome and integrate refugees into our societies and our economies. And operating at the intersection of millions of highly skilled, connected refugees, a growing demand for language services, and the booming digital economy, NaTakallam does just that. The world is a different place than it was when my parents came to America. Some see it as a time to build walls, but we are building bridges. Thank you.